Hello and welcome to another episode of Sensational She-Geek live from Yancy Street. Today is actually Sunday the 2nd, but this episode will be premiering Monday the 5th, and it is episode 16A. If you did show up over this past weekend, starting on Friday, to see if there was a 15B, thank you for coming back to continue with the show, as I was not able to get an episode out on Friday due to technical and internet difficulties. So now we're just going to go ahead and continue with episode 16A this week. And this episode will be going over a little bit of the comic book picks from the past week, since that was something I was supposed to talk about in the last episode that I did not have. So we have, this week we'll talk a little bit about those, as well as the comic book polls for this coming week, things that are going to be coming out on the 4th and 5th of May. After that, we're going to go into Black Lightning Season 4, Episode 9, Invincible Season 1, the whole kind of Season 1 is a big chunk, and I've also been watching She-Ra on Netflix, so I'll talk a little bit about that very briefly, before going into the news segments, which include news on Sailor Moon, Green Lantern, Static Shock, Titans Season 3, and Ironheart. All of those have some kind of property coming in movie or television or something like that coming up in the future, and we have news on all of those projects, so stick around past all of this TV show and comic book stuff that we're going to talk about really quick here first, and we'll get into that news stuff afterwards. Although it won't really be really quick. I tend to go on about these things for a while, so stick around. We'll hit everything as we make it through the appropriate discussion times. So anyway, let's go ahead and start off with the comic book picks from the past week, things I would have discussed on Friday, so we'll keep it a touch shorter probably than usual if I can. The comics that I'm going to talk about in no particular order and in a large variance of things that I have to discuss about them. We have Silk number 2, Harley Quinn number 2, Black Widow number 6, Beta Ray Bill number 2, and Robin number 1, which I now realize are all Marvel and DC comics. I don't know what happened to my indie stuff this week, but these are the things that stuck with me the strongest, so I will talk about those, starting with Silk. This is a series by Maureen Gu. It is absolutely fantastic. This is Silk's 3rd series, and I am so sad because I just found out this week when I went to pick this up from my local comic shop that this series is only going to go for 5 issues. That is the shortest. This is her 3rd series, and this is the shortest of the series that she's had. She did, I think it was 10 issues and then 16 issues, I want to say, and this is only 5. Why? I would say possibly it's because her former series didn't do very well, but that's not true. I know that they were fairly popular as far as, female spider series kind of go at Marvel. It was pretty popular, and she caught on as a character pretty quickly, though, as well. And she's still fairly popular. People really love her outfit. They love the fact that she was bit by the same exact spider, not the same breed, not the same, zoo or whatever. Zoo, you don't keep spiders in a zoo. Could you imagine? But she was bit by the same exact spider as Peter Parker, so she's a phenomenal character for a lot of reasons. I just really don't understand why they're not giving her anything beyond 5 issues. That seems so ridiculously tiny. The Beta Ray Bill series we're getting, I think, is 5 issues, but that series, I guess it's more like he's going on a quest. So I'll talk about that when we get there too. But Silk, there is no reason that this series should just be a mini series. People have been wanting this for so long, and they kind of sneakily made it this just 5 issues and didn't really announce it. So I don't really have too much to say about the actual issue itself, because I don't want to give too much away about what's going on. But I really love the dynamic that Cindy has with her brother, Cindy Moon, of course, being the character of Silk. I really love the dynamic that she and her brother have now. We have never gotten to see anything like that for her before, because in the past, her family was... Gosh, I can't even keep it straight. Were they in a different dimension, or was it that they had their minds wiped, or she just, couldn't, for their own safety, talk to them? I don't honestly really remember, but it was some twisted dynamic where she was not able to be in contact with her family, and it was crushing, because that's a big part of who she is, and she wasn't able to see them for so long while she was in that bunker. So it's really nice that we kind of get to see this new side of her, is a side of her with family. Even if it's just kind of her brother right now, I've been really enjoying the tiny little bits of their interactions. Of course, he knows that she's Silk, so he can help out, and there's no reason to have that ridiculous secret between them. There's no reason for that. Just like there's no reason to keep the series at 5 issues. There has been no major critiques of her series in the past. I'm just kind of scrounging for a why here, is why limit it so much? But in any case, it does continue to be, you know, as I keep saying, it's really fantastic to have these female written and female led, I guess, series for the big two especially, that are actually really phenomenal, where I don't feel like I'm hiding the faults of it as I talk about it being good. It really is that good, and I'm really happy to be able to say that confidently. Harley Quinn #2 was, of course, by Stephanie Phillips and Riley Rossmo. If you're wondering, Riley Rossmo is male identifying. That's not a female identifying person named Riley, just in case you were wondering. They have a very unique art style. If you've seen it, it's very easy to recognize. But anyway, Harley Quinn #2, this, again, like Silk, continues to be really fun and really good in a way that makes me very confident about the series. I have less to say about this issue than the first one. The first issue was definitely what I would call a stellar kickoff. And here in the second issue, we kind of, I suppose, get more build up for the future of the series. We learn more about her new sidekick, the big chubby dude. He used to work for the Joker. I guess as a member of the Joker gang of some kind. He's got the smile tattoo on his double chin. You can kind of feel his sadness, and he comes to Harley because he wants to reform himself in the way that he sees Harley trying to do for herself. So he figures, if you can do it, you know, I can do it too. I never wanted to be bad. I was just the situation that I found myself in. So I was really on edge, not on edge, but unsure about having this character, this oversized male sidekick for Harley. I didn't really see how that was going to work out too well. But it's working. This is only the second issue, and I'm pleased to say that I was wrong about that, and I actually am turning out to like this character a little bit. So, major kudos, of course, to Stephanie Phillips for being able to write this character who I assumed I was going to hate as a character I really enjoy. And I'm excited to see where the rest of the series goes. I just really wish they would get a different variant artist on it. I don't have a problem with the person who is doing the art for the variant covers, the cardstock variant covers for Harley Quinn. And I have no problem paying the extra $1 to support my comic shop and all that stuff. It's all fine and dandy. I just wish it was like, they used to have Frank Cho as the Harley Quinn cover artist. Like, that's pretty up there on the list of, like, infamous cover artists. And now they have this guy who's doing it. I don't recall his name at the moment, but it's just kind of like generic, overly glossy, somewhat tiny bit, you know, Asian-inspired style, like manga-inspired maybe. But it's very generic. I'm not that into it. I kind of hope they put somebody else on the variant covers soon. But it doesn't really matter because the series is actually really, really good. So I'm going to keep reading it even if they don't. And that actually says a lot about how good it is, I think. Black Widow #6 is, of course, by Kelly Thompson. It's one of the several Kelly Thompson series that I am currently reading. This issue did have a guest artist who was phenomenal at mimicking the style and the designs of Elena Casagrande, who is this standard Black Widow artist, which brings up a question. I get really petty about this, but I feel like there's a reason to. Kelly Thompson also writes Captain Marvel. Here she's had 6 issues of Black Widow, and they're finally taking the first issue and putting a guest art. It's not a new artist, it's a guest artist before they go back to Elena Casagrande in issue #7. And here we have her also on Captain Marvel, and they can't get 4 issues down with the same damn artist. Why is that such a big difference? You'd think this is like the equivalent of the same, this is her solo series for this female character, same as Captain Marvel is a solo series for that female character. You would think that they would kind of get the same treatment creatively, right? In any case, that's just my little bug I had to get out there. this is now the second arc officially of Black Widow. Nat is trying to find some kind of sense of normalcy in San Francisco after the extremely emotional experiences of the last arc. She, if you didn't read it and you jumped on this issue, or if you just forgot or you don't understand it or whatever, basically what happened was, the villain Arcade got some other villains together who don't like Nat very much, and Red Guardian, because he was curious what's going on. And they got together and they, I suppose you would say, brainwashed her and put her in what would be like anybody's dream life in San Francisco. Major career woman, loving, dutiful husband, newborn baby, gorgeous house, getting married soon. She had the perfect life. And then it all comes to reality that they basically just put all this together randomly and it's not real. And she's now come out the other side of that after faking her fake family's death. They're her real family, technically, because the baby really is a real baby. That was hers, technically. But they're alive. She faked their deaths. They're still alive. They're good. They're probably not going to come back into being important ever, I would think, because they faked their deaths so well. So that would be kind of lame, too, to bring them back in just to kill them later. But anyway, in this issue, Nat comes across a young pickpocket thief, and she's intrigued by her skills, so she offers her kind of a job, training under her to like a sidekick a little bit. Doesn't look like she's too interested as of this issue, but I have no doubt that was brought in for that, so we'll definitely see Nat with a new sidekick in this series. And I'm really loving the new outfit that Elena Casagrande designed for her. It's black and red, so standard Black Widow stuff. Very stealthy, very modern. Looks great for her whole shtick of, spy on the rooftops kind of thing. It has some like red glowy tubing around the edges of her suit, but I really enjoy it. Kelly Thompson's been doing a great job with the costumes in the Captain Marvel series as well, so looking forward to seeing whatever this arc is going to be about for Black Widow. Beta Ray Bill number 2. The series is a mini-series following the Corbinite Beta Ray Bill. It's written by Daniel Warren Johnson, who also does the art and coloring and everything on it. Actually, I'm not sure about coloring, but he does all the inking and everything on it, as well as the writing. He did Wonder Woman Dead Earth, which was a 3-issue DC Black Label series that I thoroughly recommend if you are a fan of Wonder Woman and generally alternate reality universes for these very well-known characters. And that's also a really good way of getting to know him as a creator, Daniel Warren Johnson. He plays heavy metal guitar, or just metal guitar, whatever it is. And it shows in his art. His style would be something that I might compare to how, it's not comparable to Frank Miller's art, not at all, but it would be something like how I would compare it to something like how Frank Miller's art only really works on a certain stuff, usually that he writes himself. I don't know how much stuff he's ever done art for that he hasn't written, if that's ever happened. But Daniel Warren Johnson is the same way, where his art feels a certain way, and so his writing tends to feel that certain way as well. So his stories tend to be very metal. But as we saw in the first issue of this mini-series, Beta Ray Bill number 1, this is not necessarily going to be that kind of series. It has these elements of extreme badassery that are coming into it, yes, but the actual purpose of this series is basically Beta Ray Bill not being happy with his appearance powered up and not being able to power down to his Corbinite form, and him being genuinely depressed about that. It's not really something that I think many people saw coming, a series about Beta Ray Bill's unhappiness with his physical appearance. He's sad that he's ugly, basically, is what I'm saying here. And that's such a new and different thing, I think, for superheroes. And I really like it. It's kind of perfect for him. So this issue, it kicks off with a truly, truly amazing double spread of his ship, which is called Scuttlebutt. You see the whole interior of the ship, kind of like a shelter is seen in Fallout. Every single room and all the corridors, and all of it has something to be seen and appreciated in the art. From someone drawing a dick on an artist's drawing board to the Marvel editorial department to real world sports flags to Daniel Warren Johnson's himself playing his guitar. It's a really awesome spread, and you can take a solid 10 minutes to catch all the details. Definitely don't just turn the page. There is a lot to be seen and to be appreciated on that spread. So like I said, after the epitome that was the series, the fact that it's going to be about Bill finding his way to return to his preferred Corbinite form, this was a pretty phenomenal second issue. Bill is met early on by Scourge, who is one of the kind of wilder Asgardians of history, and an old friend of Bill. Scourge died some time ago, and he's been in Valhalla ever since, and he reports to Bill that he was actually, I guess you would kind of explain it, astrally floating. I guess being in Valhalla means that you can kind of creep on people in Asgard or possibly Earth, whatever. So he was creeping on Bill when he witnessed his, quote, shame with Lady Sif, which would be Bill and Lady Sif trying to get it on, and then Sif being like, hey, so you're gonna transform out of this and into your Corbinite form, right? And he's like, can't do that. Okay, I guess we're not doing this. Really, intensely awkward and honestly kind of depressing stuff. But so Scourge apparently witnessed that for some reason, and he, I guess, got like the fates or whatever to allow him out of Valhalla. So first obvious thought here, there is no way that they would just let him go back to life for Bill. No offense, I love Bill. He's just not that important to the gods. So clearly, I feel like Scourge either lied or there's something else going on here for sure. The group of them find Odin in a bar because they're trying to find answers for Bill's situation, of course, which the bar is where Odin spends most of his time these days. And he basically tells Bill that there's no way to make a new Stormbreaker for him, but there is perhaps one weapon more powerful that would be powerful enough to do that, and that is Surtur's sword, which he long ago destroyed used to destroy Bill's world, which was Bill's first mission. He was chosen by his people to save them, and he failed. So he's got a intense emotional history with this sword, so it'll be really interesting seeing how this kind of goes. The sword also is in... It's one of the realms of the 9, technically 10 realms. Muspelheim? I think that's how it looks, but I feel like that's not how you pronounce it. It's a terrible place, hellish place, where apparently, according to Odin, the gods store monsters that even they can't control. So the remaining issues of the series is going to be Bill, Scourge, who I'm guessing is right now Loki, and Pip the Troll, which Pip is there because he feels ugly about himself as well. He feels like he is ugly, and he does not love himself, so he wants to go on this journey with Bill to help Bill learn to love himself. Again, didn't see that heart-wrenching, line coming to pull my guts out and make me cry. Not really, but a lot more emotional and heartfelt and heavy than I was expecting. So it's going to be the three of them fighting through that place, Muspelheim, to get the sword that will hopefully let him transform again. And when they go into the gateway to Muspelheim, Scuttlebutt, who is Beta Ray Bill's ship, who has an AI, so they're kind of like a robot, basically. Something odd happens to Scuttlebutt, and they are transformed into a robot woman. I definitely think that she is head over heels in love with Beta Ray Bill, and it's probably going to get awkward between them because of that, but I'm really loving this, and I'm so excited to see where the series goes now that we know kind of what's going to go on. It's going to be good. Lastly, for my picks from the past week, Robin #1, it's kind of a funny situation that Robin finds himself in. Let's explain the story first. So, basically it starts, Robin has left Gotham without a trace, and this of course being Damian Wayne Robin, if you weren't sure about that. So Damian Wayne has left Gotham without a trace, looking to start his own legacy, kind of. He is the son of Batman and the son of the deadliest woman alive in the DC universe. So he has, he's got a lot going for him, pretty much. But still, this issue ends with his utter defeat, as his heart is actually ripped out of his chest entirely. So I had to think about that for a second. I'm pretty sure this is real. It's not some dream or something. He's really dead. But I definitely think he's gonna get brought back through the Lazarus Pit, which is, of course, oh gosh, it's, tied in with his father, with his grandfather and his mother, and how the Legion of oh gosh, I'm blinking. The Legion of whatever it was. The League is not the Legion. The League of Assassins, that's what it is. The League of Assassins, which is what his grandfather runs, Ra's al Ghul. They're involved with the whole Lazarus Pit, so when they die, they can put in the pit and they come back, but they are a little bit crazy when they come back. It's happened to characters through the years. Jason Todd being probably the most famous one of that, because he gets brought back after he gets beat to death by the Joker. Damian's mother actually is the one to bring him back, and I don't really remember why. And he becomes then Red Hood. So my guess here is that's probably going to be what's going to happen to Damian. It's somebody, most likely his mother or one of her followers, is going to drag him to a Lazarus Pit and bring him back. To add to that, it would be really cool if they brought him back a little bit aged up somehow, put him in the pit, and he comes out a little older maybe, since Jonathan Kent, who is like his buddy, was also aged up, and now Damian is just kind of a kid for no reason. He has nobody to be a kid around, no reason to be a kid. It'd be nice if they kind of age him up a little bit the way that they did with John. So next up, that's all my comic book picks from the past week. Next up, we're going to go really quickly over my comic book polls for this coming week. And this is things for DC Comics will be coming out on the 4th of May, which is Tuesday. And for everything else, it's going to be coming out the standard Wednesday, the 5th of May. So, we've got a couple of things here this week that we're going to talk about, so let's go ahead and go over those. First up is Eden #1, which is a comic coming from Aftershock. This sparked my interest because it is written by creator Cullen Bunn, who I'm a bit familiar with from his Marvel work. He has done, notably for things that I have read, as Guardians of the Galaxy. Back in, I believe, 2013, he did Fearless Defenders. I believe he did the most recent Ant-Man series as well. Everything he writes has usually got a fun little, it has his own kind of fun attitude in it. So him moving to what seems to be a serious indie comic is something that really grabs my attention, because every time I have favorite writers or notable writers or writers who I recognize from quote-unquote big two publishers who go to then quote-unquote indie publishers and do their own kind of creator-owned projects, that tends to be where I find my favorite comics ever written. That's certainly where I have found, probably most of my absolute all-time favorite comics are things that traditionally, for what I see as big two writers who go and do something for indie comics for themselves. So this is written by Cullen Bunn, who I know from Marvel, like I said, and the art is by Dalibor Talajic, who I have no idea what he's done before. Apparently Witchhammer and Relay. But this series, the plot of it also sounds very interesting. So it's about a tattoo artist who kind of lives this mundane life until this woman Eden walks in, hence the name of the comic is Eden, there you go. And apparently that whenever he tattoos her, the tattoos only last a few days. So, big mystery about this woman. I'm sure it's going to be something. It says it's going to include fathomless depths of both love and horror. So that really honestly sparks my interest. It's also prestige format. It's 48 pages, and it's supposed to be a horror romance. So all kind of checking boxes of things that interest me. I'm really looking forward to this one, and I really hope that it kind of holds up to the personal expectations that I have of it, which are only really because I have this trope of Marvel and DC writers who go do indie stuff, that's way better than anything they've ever done at Marvel and DC. But that's just me. The Invincible Red Sonja premieres this week also with its #1 issue. This series is another one where I was interested in based on the creative teams. It is going to be co-written by married comic creator couple Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, who themselves are extremely well known for their work on transforming the character of Harley Quinn. This series will not be drawn by Amanda Connor, however, it will be drawn by the artist who goes by Moritat. Not familiar with their work, but I looked it up and it looks pretty good, so it's going to be really exciting. This series is going to be, and I'm quoting this from the solicitation, it's going to be Red Sonja finding herself on a spectacular journey filled with pirates, mermaids, princesses, and political intrigue as the threat of two kingdoms hangs in the balance. Okay, that sounds good enough for me. I have a really hard time, as I've mentioned a few times before, finding Red Sonja comics that I really enjoy to read as they come out. The current Red Sonja comic that's ongoing was kind of up and down. I know it has a new creator. First issue of that really didn't spark my interest, unfortunately. So I'm hoping that this one will be something really stellar that will get Red Sonja back on my pull list. It also comes with, as most Dynamite things do, a absolute buttload of variant covers. So many variant covers. I guess it's like too many for me to count in just a couple of seconds here. But most importantly, in my opinion, is the Frank Cho. It is the D cover, if you're looking for it, based on what order these things are in. It is the D cover. And it is a sketch cover style cover. If you're familiar with Frank Cho's art and his outrage sketches of busty, voluptuous women who are characters in comics usually, being kind of cocky. It's really fun. I really enjoy his style and his kind of jokes about that. And apparently he's going to be doing 10 of these covers based on what it looks like a label number 3 of 10 at the bottom of this first one. And the first issue is just a kind of sketch of her standing there, and she says, "Stop staring at my ass, peasant." And the second one is her with an axe or something, and she's going, "It's time to unfriend somebody." So they're just fun little sketches of Red Sonja. If you're a fan of Frank Cho at all, definitely check this series out. Also, if you're a fan of Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti's work, definitely check this series out. This is one that I definitely expect to actually last on my pull list for the remainder of the series. I did not read the first issue of the Green Lantern series that's going right now, but I will probably read the second issue. My husband read the first one, so maybe I'll catch up first. We do have it. I'll probably read the second one because Joe Mullen arrives. Joe is, of course, the Green Lantern who appears in the series Far Sector by N.K. Jemisin and Jamal Campbell. Can't recommend that one enough. It's truly phenomenal. And she is a new kind of Green Lantern who, the whole thing, the power rings for a Green Lantern are given to somebody who proves that they can overcome great fear with their willpower, right? So for Joe, she's a little bit different, where they're trying something a little bit different to see if they can get the ring to self-charge, because there's problems with the whole battery at Oa and everything. Joe is a lantern who has been given a ring because of her ability to continuously go forth, living through her fear, as opposed to being able to overcome it, because she was, at one point in her life, a Black American cop, and she witnessed things that were horrifying and that were life-changing and all kinds of other things, but she lives in fear when she is, in her normal, just human on Earth state. Her everyday is touched by fear in some way because she is a Black woman and she was a cop. So it's a complicated situation for her, and just to be alive with who she is. So love the character of Joe. She, of course, is the future Green Lantern, as we saw her as the main Green Lantern of Earth in in Future State. Far Sector is what she's currently in. There's only 2 more issues of that, I believe. Or possibly 1, I don't know. I'm really excited for it either way, but I'm excited to see her in this issue. I have no idea what to expect because we've only ever seen her in Far Sector and in 2 single issues of Future State stuff, so hoping that it's going to be as good as we have kind of come to know her, but we'll wait and see. This is going to be alongside the Teen Lantern Kelly and John Stewart's Lantern, I believe. So that'll be a really interesting dynamic. They're very strong personalities, and I'm looking forward to see Joe meeting some other Lanterns for the first time ever. America Chavez, Made in the USA #3 is coming out this week as well. As I've said before, I have been phenomenally impressed with the first 2 issues of the series. It has been a world of difference between it's world of difference from her previous solo series, which lasted, I believe, 10 to 12 issues, but was critically a bump. It was just not good. It wasn't very well liked by anybody, I don't think. I saw if you do like it, I guess it was liked by you, so good for you. But not a lot of people like that series, myself included, and I am, in the way that I am. So when it's a series that goes so far as to me not like it for being a little bit too ridiculous in certain ways, it's probably a little bit too ridiculous in certain ways. However, America Chavez, Made in the USA, which we're getting the 3rd issue of this week, is not like that at all. It is so good. I've been having so much fun with this. The last issue ended with America kind of bumping into the mysterious new villain in her life, and being dragged to the utopian parallel, which is where she's from. She hasn't been there since she was a very small child. And apparently we're going to learn who this new villain is. My guess is that it's going to be a sibling, because of the things that they said in the last issue, kind of accusing her of forgetting where she comes from. And also they have the same stars on their wrists that America has. Not sure about the powers of people in the utopian parallel or how genetics works or things. Potentially only people in America's family would have those stars if it's something that's passed down between, children or something. I don't really know. I assume we're about to find out, but that's kind of why also I'm leaning towards it's a sibling, is because they seem to be somewhat similar to her. I don't know if everybody's like that in the utopian parallel, but these 2 being similar makes me think family, and it's definitely not one of her moms. That would be so lame. But younger sibling for sure, is what I'm thinking here for this villain in this new America series. Sensational Wonder Woman #3 comes out. This series, you have to remember, is an anthology series. There is only 1 story per issue, so you get a full Wonder Woman comic length story in each of these issues, but they do have different creative teams on each issue. That being said, I have loved the first 2 of these issues. This is now we're 4 for 4 or something on me talking about female-led and female-created series, actually, that are just going above and beyond and blowing me out of the water completely. This week's Sensational Wonder Woman #3 is going to be written by Alyssa Wong with art by Colleen Duran, who, if you're not familiar with, is a extraordinary artist. And there's going to be a cardstock variant cover by artist Marguerite Sauvage, who I am a very big fan of. She's done some phenomenal work. So this is no doubt going to be a great issue. I have no idea what it's going to be about. I didn't bother reading the solicitation because the first 2, being extremely different in every way, were both equally excellent. So I have no doubt that this 3rd issue will be fantastic as well. And of course, that series is to celebrate the 80th anniversary of Wonder Woman. So if you see the Wonder Woman, the blue and red kind of awkward Wonder Woman insignia they're doing for some reason on the cover of that's what that is for the 80th anniversary of her. It's just kind of a weird symbol. Swamp Thing #3 comes out this week, which I'm only interested in because it features Poison Ivy, which she's also on the cover and has a variant cover featuring just her. What I'm trying to figure out here. So this is written by Ram V, who also writes Catwoman. In Catwoman right now, Ivy has kind of been put in a tank, and purchased by an art collector to be kept in his home. Obviously super weird. But there's a lot, obviously, Ivy has going on for her that could be happening that we just don't see. Like, she can create duplicates of herself. She can come back from absolutely nothing because she is of the green. She is plant matter now. She's not human anymore. Which is why I'm kind of wondering what's happening that she's showing up in Swamp Thing #3 by the same writer who has her currently trapped in Catwoman. I'm hoping that it's going to be something like, maybe he's just writing this like, yeah, these are taking place at totally different times, which doesn't really make sense because it's kind of like how Donny Cates over at Marvel, his Thor series and his King in Black stuff just did not line up at all time-wise. And now I kind of feel the same way about Poison Ivy being written completely different ways, it would seem, by Ron V in his own series. But we'll wait and see. I could be eating my foot on, this coming Friday. I could be eating my foot about that, and it could have a great explanation, but we'll have to just wait and see. Other things we have this week that I'm going to talk about a lot less. Bliss #7, which is of 8. This is a just absolutely artistically gorgeous book, as well as a really well thought out and heartfelt book. I can't really do it justice by explaining it ever, but it's very touching, and it's extremely unique and interesting. Puts you in a world that is equally fantasy as well as grounded in realism. So it's kind of cool to see those two opposing sides kind of interact in this world as they go through things. Hellions #11 also comes out this week. It's, Quanon and her team doing things for Mr. Sinister. Vampirella #19 also comes out. I honest to God cannot remember what happened in #18, but I remember I liked it. It's by Christopher Priest, who's been doing, in my opinion, a fantastic job with Vampirella. I haven't been reading Sacred 6. It was a bit much for me, but this has been a really fun series, and she's on Draculon now, I do know. So we're gonna see if she abandons her planet once again for humanity. And finally, we have Marauders #20, which is apparently a start to a new era for Storm, or at least so says its solicitation. So, I'm curious what that means. If we're actually going to see new stuff happening here, or if this is going to be a Storm. I assume it's going to be a Storm-centric issue. Is she going to get a new outfit, a new role? Is she going to leave Krakoa? I highly doubt that. Whatever it is, I'm really excited to see, because obviously Storm is a wonderful character who we all know and love, and so I'm excited to see what her next era is, what the next step for her is in comic book history. That wraps up the comic book talk for this episode. I'm going to go now into things that I was watching in the past week, including Black Lightning Season 4, Episode 9, Invincible Season 1, which is entirely up on Amazon, and I am going to spoil it when I talk about it, the first season here, so you're not going to want to listen to it, because there are some big things that if I spoil it for you, it's not worth watching the show, to be honest. Then we're going to talk a little bit about She-Ra on Netflix before we get into our news and announcements of the comics and nerdy things and pop culture stuff. So, you will note that I am not discussing the behind the scenes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier that premiered on Friday. I will talk about that next Friday. I ran out of time here, so we'll just hold that for later. It will come next Friday, which, if I check my calendar really quick, is the 7th. I should know that it's my husband's birthday and we're going out of town, but the episode will be up, don't worry. This episode of Black Lightning is where we're going to start with. It was episode 9. It's kind of getting a little bit difficult to talk about, because we're kind of at the point of this season where it's becoming really clear. I'm starting to see very clearly the showrunners putting in the steps for wrapping things up on the show overall. It didn't really feel like a final season until these last couple of episodes, and I think it's safe to say it definitely feels like a final season now. It kind of feels like there's less at stake, maybe? I'm not really sure what it is that makes me feel like that, but there it is. The episode started off with Lynn, who was, of course, Black Lightning Jefferson's wife, Um, you don't know it's a dream sequence for a while. You kind of figure it out partway through, but she's dreaming that she kills her entire family in the process of trying to remove their powers without their consent, which, if that is not a major warning sign for your own mental health, I don't know what is. That's like you are dreaming about accidentally, kind of on purpose, killing your family because you are so obsessed with trying to remove their powers without their consent. Like, that is, as far as like signs from the universe go, that's, you should pay attention to that one. This is going to be a very brief go over the episode. I apologize if you were looking for more. Jennifer, who is, of course, Lightning, she is back to doing more of her social media as Lightning, which basically no one thinks is a good idea, and I have to agree. This is, oh gosh, I don't know what year it is in the show, but in our world it's 2021, and it's been probably a solid decade plus. They have been able to track cell phones and IP addresses, so, even if she's got, like, VPNs on her cell phone, which I don't know if you can do that on a cell phone, it's not safe. It's definitely not safe. At this point in Black Lightning, I kind of, I hate to say it, but I kind of feel like I'm watching this show for Painkiller now. We know that he has a potential future on screen, and it somehow feels like they're almost focusing more on him in order to switch him out and make him the main character of this, I guess, what was the Black Lightning universe. They're all kind of tied into the Arrowverse now, technically, but once again, the show was apparently canceled to make room for Superman and Lois, which is a show that I've enjoyed, but I don't think it was good enough to cancel another show for it. This was a really good show as well. I definitely think in the past couple of episodes they've been toning things down, calming things down, getting ready to switch over to just drop the whole family and just move on with Painkiller to his show, assuming that gets a full show order. I'm really saddened to see that it was apparently because of Superman and Lois that the show is getting such a bum ending. And who knows, it could be, we get the next 3 or 4 episodes, whatever it's going to be that they're going to have for this final season, and it ends up blowing it out of the water and giving it a beautiful wrap-up. I of course hope that's going to happen, but just based on what I'm seeing right now of things kind of toning down at the mid to end point of this last season, it'll probably be a bit like this for the end. So I'm kind of watching this for Painkiller now, even though he is not at all kind of involved with the Jefferson family anymore. He's kind of returned to being a somewhat important character, and definitely one of the more interesting ones who is on the show now. So I'm kind of sad that Black Lightning's being phased out like this, but I am definitely hopeful that Painkiller will continue on. Now, Invincible Season 1. To preface this, there's going to be a bunch of spoilers, so skip for a little bit and come back later. Hopefully you won't hear the major spoiler parts as I'm usually skipping. I have never read this comic, never picked one up. I've seen pictures of them. I have seen volumes of them in my local shops. I've seen individual issues, I think, here and there. Never picked one up. Never had any interest. But even in picking up the show, I was a little bit hesitant because I didn't want it to be like just like The Boys. I didn't actually think it was going to be like that, but it was like an Amazon superhero show. It's kind of like, I don't know. I had no idea it was going to be as violent as it was going to be going into it. But I really ended up enjoying it. Definitely. For me, I enjoyed this far more than I enjoyed The Boys. I liked The Boys. It was a really great show. But I think this honestly blows it out of the water. It's a lot less disturbing that will make your skin kind of crawl because it's so close to being something that could actually happen, I guess. That's why The Boys kind of rubbed me weird. Great show, but it was a little bit too real for me. Invincible, it's animated, so you get a little bit less of that, like, oh god, this could really happen. So the show starts, and you get introduced to the main character, who is a teenager. He's like 17. Mark Grayson is his name. He is the son of Omni-Man, who is easily comparable to DC's Superman. He came from some kind of utopian planet that works on peacekeeping through the galaxy, so that's why he's here on Earth. Mark has always known that someday he'll come into powers of his own, and now that he's late in high school, the powers finally show up. He proudly reports it to his father and his parents. His mom is really excited for him at the dinner table when he's announcing this, but his dad is somehow solemn and odd about it, which, was weird because you'd think, oh good, your son has finally come into this thing that you two now share. But he's kind of like bummed about it, seems even. His dad, Omni-Man, is a member. He's actually not a member of this team, but he's like a friend of this world's like equivalent to the Justice League, with all of the standard tropes, right? So you have the fast one, the overpowered one, the broody rich one, the warrior woman, the ocean person, literally hitting every one of those tropes that we normally have between like the Avengers and the Justice League. But don't get too attached to these characters because, and here's where we get spoilers, when Omni-Man learns that his son has, I guess, matured physically, he sends out a message to the other League members, I suppose, and they all gather at their base, and Omni-Man methodically slaughters every single one of them. Just in case you were wondering, this is not a kid's show. The reason the show has a vibe of The Boys is definitely the violence, but the rest of the plot is entirely its own. And as far as I've heard, it's actually pretty close to the comic as well. So really, really cool. Obviously, visually, it looks incredibly close to the comic. It's the only thing that I know about it is visually, because I've only ever seen covers. But it's good. This was so good. But anyway, after this, no one knows that Omni-Man was the one to kill them all. They kind of just think that he was the sole survivor in this battle situation of whatever it may have been that killed them all. Mark has the kid Mark, right? He has regular, like teenage kid issues with girls in school and everything. And now he has having more issues because of the superpowers, but also because he kind of teams up or tries out maybe with a group of teenage superheroes, ends up kind of getting wrapped up in all their drama too. It's just kind of, superpowers aren't really being helpful for him in his life. Not really a bad thing, but it's not really like that great and useful. Meanwhile, in the background, there's this creepy government guy who looks like Dracula, he's the first one to figure out that Omni-Man was the murderer of the other superheroes, and he starts putting in steps as to find out, not to stop him, but to actually find out why, so they can handle the situation better. So he goes about it pretty smartly. It takes until the second to last episode for Mark and his mother to realize what Omni-Man truly is. And in this past Friday's finale episode, we learn the truth of Omni-Man's planet. They are not peacekeepers necessarily, they are conquerors, raiding the galaxy and taking over planets all over the place, slaughtering anybody who doesn't fall into line. Standard conqueror stuff. He was sent to Earth to have a child, raise the child, and then take the child and have it help take over the planet with him. He tells Mark that his alien DNA is extremely dominant, so even though he's technically half human, he is genetically almost entirely the same species as his father. There's very little, he basically has no human to him now that he has fully matured. Mark learns that his father is evil when he witnesses him absolutely destroy the revived body of one of his former fellow superheroes that he already has killed once. He chops his head off with his hand. And now Mark sees his dad, Omni-Man, slaughtering him again, even worse. I think he rips up the body or something. And Mark obviously can hardly believe it. There's a very long moment of shock before he can even respond to what he's seeing in the situation. His father, Omni-Man, tries to convince Mark that humans aren't really worth anything, since they, as their alien species, live thousands of years. He says he sees his own wife, Mark's mother, as more of a pet than anything else. And she hears this, because she's over there with the creepy, CIA, FBI, whatever guy, watching all of this go down and listening to him admitting all this stuff and saying that she is nothing to him. Oh my god, this poor woman. She thought she was the trophy wife of a superhero. It turns out that she was his dog. That is awful. To truly show Mark how meaningless humans are, Omni-Man he chucks Mark through the city, which Mark being indestructible now, and that's why he calls himself Invincible, and Omni-Man being Omni-Man, it causes chaos. It's like nothing. it's awful. He crashes through buildings, destroys countless cars, causes a body count likely at least in the hundreds, if not touching on the thousands. Mark is obviously horrified at the destruction. And I thought it was super dark, obviously, but I thought it was really cool when so he busts through one of the buildings, and you know how in movies they always have buildings just kind of like fall to the ground. This was really cool because we'll have somebody who, like, the building will like fall in half, and somebody will go, no, and they'll run over and they'll push it up with all their strength. The building will get put back on top of itself and it'll be fine. That's not realistic. What's realistic is what happens here, which is he goes up and he tries to hold the building up as it's falling. The structure weighs itself down. He ends up holding up a very small chunk of wall. Actually, it's worse than that. As the building is crumbling around him, as he's trying to hold it up and keep it from crumbling around him, which obviously he's just one guy, he can't do that. A woman and her daughter in the I guess house or apartment right there that he's right next to, on the wall. The woman falls out the window, and so he's trying to save the two of them while he's trying to save the building. The whole thing ends up crushing around him, obviously, because the pressure of the entire structure falling, him being a pinpoint in the center, was not going to save that. It was just going to make it worse, if anything. And so he ends up on the ground. He lifts up the arm of the lady he was holding, and it's just an arm. Really, really phenomenally brutal stuff. And then to make matters even worse beyond that, Omni-Man then shows back up and smashes his son, Mark, Invincible, through the ground into a subway, and then stands on the track, holding Mark out in front of him as the train tries to pass by where they stand. The result is Mark's body splitting the train open like a butter knife through butter, and brutally murdering anything or anyone who was in it. He's just this completely unmovable object, cutting through absolutely anything or anyone that passes by him as he is held there. It is an absolutely horrifying scene of death and destruction left behind. Mark's entire body is covered in a thick layer of blood as the bodies exploded as they hit him. And then his dad goes on and drags him to Everest. And even more people die in the destruction on the way. It's a really, really intense, brutal scene that, honestly, for a moment, it lets you step into Omni-Man's shoes and kind of honestly see and understand how he sees us, the humans, as actual ants. You can kind of see his perspective for a second there as he's just kind of going about willy-nilly. Like, it doesn't matter, I can do what I want because literally nothing will hurt me and literally everything will kill them. Like, it's bonkers. It is wild how they get you into that perspective to kind of see from his point of view what's going on. But then, since Mark refuses to help his dad take over the planet, Omni-Man decides to just kill him. He actually says, "What's another 17 years?" Like, wow, brutal, just gonna make another kid if this one doesn't turn out evil enough. Which does bring up the point that he really should have seen this coming if he raised the kid as a human to be kind to other humans. Of course he isn't gonna go along with your super evil surprise master plan. Like, how did you expect him to just be like, sure, Dad, we'll be villains now. Okay. Didn't think that went through very far. Then he gets to the point where Mark is on the brink of death from Omni-Man bashing his face in repeatedly. And there's a brief moment where Omni-Man remembers a sweet memory from Mark's childhood, and it's just enough to get him to stop for a moment and drive him away with anger and frustration of everything that's going on and how he thought it would go one way and it didn't go that way. And as he flies off planet, we, the audience, see that he has tears in his eyes, which I would argue would be their tears just as much of frustration as they are of whatever fatherly feelings he may be having from that memory, because he spent 17 years, he may say 17 years was nothing. He spent 17 years pretending to be a human. I doubt that was easy for a person who apparently cares for humans as little as he does. So I would argue he's not just sad and trying to hide his tears by flying away. He's probably also pissed the hell off. Mark takes a really long time to wake up from basically the coma that he was beaten into. And his dad, when he wakes up, still hasn't been seen or heard from. He makes up with his girlfriend, his all-goody two-shoes. Mark ends up at the end of the show meeting up with the this like interplanetary report guy. It doesn't really matter. He appeared earlier on this season, and through him it is kind of revealed that Omni-Man's people are kind of known to do this sort of thing, and that they're probably not gonna just let this all slide. So yeah, Omni-Man is definitely going home to report these issues and come back with a damn armada of super soldiers. And I can't wait to see it all go down. I might pick up a couple of the omnibuses of this and check them out. I don't know. I'm not super big on reading violence in comics because at a certain point it's just kind of like, okay, we get it. You just have to keep drawing bones. Like, it's different than TV. I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird for thinking that, but it's also important to remember, Invincible has been renewed on Amazon for seasons 2 and 3. So if you did like the show, or if you feel like I spoiled it too much for you to watch it now, there's going to be 2 more seasons for you to watch, potentially, before I get to it to spoil it for you. So, stick around and we can, argue about that later or whatever. She-Ra is not anything that's new by any means. On Netflix, the She-Ra show, I believe, started in 2018. It's got 5 seasons. It was new to me, though, so I feel like talking about it. I am almost finished with all 5 seasons. I have about 4. I think I just finished, episode 9 of season 5. I'm really, really liking this. I liked it a lot more as I got into it, even more. I'd say the intro song, the whole intro sequence, I guess, it makes me cringe harder than I knew was humanly possible. But otherwise, this is a super enjoyable show. It's definitely something that I am sure a certain type of person is going to label as SJW nonsense, because it has things like, I guess you could say, kind of pudgy bodies on certain characters, a variety of characters of color, a variety of, personalities and power types, variety of I said personalities already. Lessons. It's a proper all ages show, I think, where it's people who are kids and people who are adults can equally enjoy it and get different things from it and enjoy them kind of for different reasons. Like, there's kiddie elements that maybe kids would enjoy better, and then there's some much more mature elements that would probably just go way over a kid's head, but are still very obviously fun to enjoy for the adult perspective. I wasn't expecting it to have so much space stuff involved, which in retrospect is kind of ridiculous, I guess. I had no idea what She-Ra was. That wasn't stuff that we were raised on at all. We were PBS kids. That was it. So I didn't know what to expect from this, and I was definitely not expecting it to have so much of the space stuff. Like, we have, like, space portals and space travel and moving planets and planetary superpowers and all kinds of just wild stuff like that. I guess I have heard that people were mad that She-Ra in the first couple of seasons wore shorts under her dress, to which I have to say, she's like 15, you creeps. And in the 5th season, her outfit kind of transitions into pants, which honestly looks way better. It looks super sharp and sleek and put together, and I think it's awesome. I feel the same way about Wonder Woman when she had pants. Not the pants she has right now, because she's wearing a Norse outfit and she is a Greco-Roman character, and that just doesn't line up in my brain at all. But anyway, when she did have the proper Wonder Woman pants, I loved that. I thought it looked so sick. It just looked like she was ready to kick the shit out of somebody. And this looks sleek and, like Catwoman-esque almost, if you know what I mean. But anyway, she's now in pants, and I think it looks great. And I have 4 episodes left, so hopefully I'm not going to say something stupid that will make me put my foot in my mouth later. I am not sure if there's going to be a 6th season. I did a little bit of research today, and the reports say both yes and no all over the internet, but the more recent reports pretty much all say yes, there will be a 6th season. But I haven't been able to find anything official about that. So let's say for now, tentatively, there might be a 6th season. I certainly hope so, because I have no idea how the 5th season ends yet, but I would love to see more. So hopefully we'll have a 6th season of She-Ra, Princess of Power. I really liked it. It took me a couple episodes to really get into it, but at that point, after that, once you kind of get to know the characters and the world, it's definitely something easy to enjoy. Now we will move on to our segment of news and announcements and things, I suppose. I say a lot on this, don't I? We're going to be talking about Sailor Moon, Green Lantern, Static Shock, Titans, and Ironheart. Those are all properties that have announcements for this week, starting with Sailor Moon. I did not get in. I've read manga. Like, I started reading manga in high school when I was 14. I had this older girl who showed me a couple of mangas that I just fell in love with, and I spent most of my lunches in my freshman year of high school in the library reading manga. Somehow, though, I never got to reading Sailor Moon or watching it or anything like that. So I wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that I started ever, for the first time, watching Sailor Moon Crystal, which is, of course, the more modern TV remake of the manga. After I finished Crystal, I went through and watched I watched subs. Sorry if there's a background noise, a motorcycle. It's getting all buzzy. I watched the original anime after I watched the, I guess, 2 seasons of Crystal that were available at the time. And I do watch them dubbed, I do watch them dubbed because I tend to do things while I watch it, and I don't speak Japanese, so I can't read things while I do things as well, so it just works better for me. I know a lot of people are very, very traditionalist about that, and so don't hate me for watching it dubbed, but I watch it dubbed. Where I'm going with this is, they announced a couple of days ago that Sailor Moon Eternal, the movie, will be on Netflix June 3rd, which is, as of this podcast episode premiering, 1 month away, which is super exciting. To make things more exciting, it's going to be based off the, quote, dream arc of the original manga. Now, I've seen the first 4 seasons of the original anime. I've seen the first, I believe, 2 seasons of Sailor Moon Crystal, the 2nd series, or the remake series. I haven't seen any of the movies. I don't even know where to go to watch those, honestly. But I do own all 10 volumes of the Sailor Moon Eternal manga, which is it's Sailor Moon, but it's called Eternal, which is just the format that it's been printed in. It's large, it's somewhat in color, etc. It's got translation notes at the back. It's really, honestly, really cool. I currently am on my journey of reading these. I'm almost done with book 6. The dream arc that the Sailor Moon Eternal movie is going to be coming out about is going to be, if you look for book 7 of the Sailor Moon Eternal manga, that is the dream arc. It takes place in there. And if you're familiar with the, I guess the original show, the dream arc is the arc that's more or less with Chibiusa, her unicorn friend, and the villains who search for a pure heart so they can find the unicorn. And then there's Sailor Neptune and Uranus end up getting involved, and Chibiusa falls in love with a unicorn, but that's okay because it ends up being a real boy. That's very loose understanding based on the original anime that I have watched. Like I said, I'm still reading the manga. I'm only just wrapping up volume 6, and volume 7 is what this is going to be based off of, so I am going to have that fresh in my mind when the movie premieres. It is going to be 2 parts, which I as much as I want that to be 2 movie-length episodes, it's probably just going to be 2-hour-length episodes, making the movie once you watch them back to back. So, in any case, we get the, I don't know if it's all of the voice actresses, but a good amount of the voice actors are coming back to do the characters that they are known for doing, so that's also very exciting for people who are, who know about that kind of stuff. Like I said, I've only been a Sailor Moon fan for the past couple of years, and only been, I guess you could say, heavily into it for the past year or so, since COVID started, basically, and I had the time to do research and stuff on that. But I'm really excited. I love this whole property. I have fantasies about writing it myself. No, I don't. That's lame. What? Anyway, June 3rd, Sailor Moon and Turtle, the movie. I will probably be dancing in my pajamas watching that. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be awesome. I'm excited. For the Green Lantern movie news, that is what it is. The Green Lantern movie is going to be coming out at some point in history, I guess, in the future. It's supposed to be starring a number of Green Lanterns, including Guy Gardner, who was announced, his casting was announced this past week, as actor Finn Wittrock. If that name doesn't sound familiar, you might, it's more than likely that you're going to recognize him. He's been in a number of things in recent history, including American Horror Story, Ratchet, which is the series with the chick from American Horror Story on Netflix. He is the brother, if you're familiar with that. He's also been in American Crime Story, La La Land, A Midsummer Night's Dream, which was 2017, Plus One, which was 2019, The Big Short, Judy, and Unbroken, all of which are kind of more recent things. So he has quite the resume in front of him. He's got dark brown hair, and Guy Gardner is traditionally a redhead, so I'm kind of curious about how that will work out. I can't imagine him with red hair at all, but he does have a very, I'll say, feminine face, so I can see him playing a kind of loud and cocky space cop character who happens to date other men, because remember, Guy Gardner is gay. So this is going to be one I'm very interested in seeing. He doesn't really look like a Guy Gardner type at all, really, from what I see based on everything I've seen him before. But he's clearly a good actor. He's good. And he's a bit creepy, I suppose you could say. So I'm definitely intrigued on how this is going to play out. Whenever you see these things cast, like Robert Pattinson as Batman, people are like, "Oh, that's crazy! That's why from Twilight." Well, that got me really interested because, well, gee, this is gonna be something very different than what we've seen him in before. That makes me very interested. This is kind of similar. I cannot see him playing Guy Gardner at all, which makes me believe, honestly, a little more than before that he will be an excellent Guy Gardner. And hopefully this Green Lantern movie will not be a complete disappointment, she says as she crosses every finger and toe she owns. This is also the movie I think we're supposed to be getting Jessica Drew in, or sorry, that's Spider-Woman, Jessica Cruz in. It's too many Jessicas. Too many Jessicas and Jennifers, seriously, and redheads, in comics. So hopefully we'll get a Jessica Cruz Green Lantern in this movie as well. I think it's a movie. Shit, is it a TV show? I'm actually not sure. There's been so much, there's so many, random DC projects floating through, the rumor mill. I'm not actually sure what's what anymore. But we do know that this is actually happening it's going to be either a movie or a TV show, and we know he's playing Guy Gardner, so those things actually are known. They're known variables. If you are at all interested in the Static Shock TV series, we had it announced last week that Michael B. Jordan, who is one of the showrunners, I suppose is a good title for him. He's kind of the one making this all happen, so I guess the showrunner is pretty good for that. He announced that writer Randy McKinnon will be writing a draft of the show. Randy McKinnon has served as, and this is something that I pulled from I think I pulled this straight from Wikipedia. Randy served as a writer-producer on the War of the Worlds TV series for Apple Plus, and was a writer for Chambers, a Netflix original series starring Uma Thurman and Tony Goldwyn. Is that out? I don't think it's out yet. I haven't heard of it. He's also done a Disney movie called Safety, which was about some kind of football sports, high five thing. It's one of those sports movies, which I have obviously not seen. But it's if War of the Worlds and a Disney movie about sports is, if you can hit both of those well, that's, you got talent. You can probably do the Static Shock series really well. You have quite a birth of things that you're able to do, and that's good. So if you're interested in that Static Shock series, it's going to be coming out at some point in the future. It is still moving forward, it seems, and we do have the writer there, Randy McKinn. Although it does seem that is the way that this was phrased when I read this report, it does seem that he is going to be writing a first draft. So it doesn't necessarily seem that he's going to be the final writer. He's just giving them his ideas of what to do for the movie. That's kind of my understanding of it. We'll wait and see what happens in the future, who ends up being the final writer for this. Again, I'm not sure if this is a movie or a TV show. Titans, though. Titans, I know that's a series. We've already had two seasons of it, so I'm confident on this one. The Titans news that we had this week is that actor Vincent Carthiser, I think that's right, was cast as the Scarecrow. If you don't recognize that name, you may have seen him as Pete Campbell on the show Mad Men. If you don't remember who's who on Mad Men, Pete Campbell was the... how would I even describe him? He was the newlywed guy, right? And then he ends up impregnating the handmaid. She ends up being in Handmaid's Tale. I'm great with names, people. But this season 3, he's added to the new characters that are also Blackfire and Jason Todd appearing as specifically Red Hood, which makes me wonder, again, thinking about that, we didn't see him, I mean, he's not getting his head beat in by the Joker, most likely, in Titans. I just can't see that being a plot that they walk down. Him dying brutally, sure, but it's not going to be the Joker. I don't see the Joker as a character that they're going to bring in here to kill Jason, or to bring him to the brink of death, or whatever. So whatever it is that triggers him to become Red Hood, I am super curious to find out what that is. And he was a pretty good Red Hood, because you kind of hate him, and that's how you know he was a good Red Hood. So Vincent Carthiser as Scarecrow, he is a little bit of a mousy, dork-looking guy. So once again, that makes me really excited to see how they're gonna have him pull off this like twisted, potentially still somewhat doctor-ish character. What their take on that's going to be. Pretty much all their takes on their characters have been really good that I've seen so far on Titans. So he's clearly a good actor based on what I've seen him do on Mad Men. So this will be really fun to see him pull a entirely different kind of character as this, no doubt, extremely twisted villain. And finally, the last bit of news here before we wrap things up is from Ironheart. Ironheart is going to be a Disney Plus TV series. That one I am confident about. I remembered one. And the news that we have this week for Ironheart is that writer, or I guess poet, Shanaka Hodge has been hired to write the show's script. And this I know I pulled from Wikipedia. Shanaka Hodge is an American poet, educator, playwright, and screenwriter. She has received national recognition for her publications, especially her artistic work on gentrification. Excellent background for writing the Ironheart series. If you're unfamiliar with what Ironheart is, Riri Williams was created by Brian Michael Bendis as a character, another character for, well, I guess he hadn't done Naomi yet, had he? Yeah, as another is the character for his daughters to look up to, because he has 2 adopted black daughters, I believe, and a son as well. But he created these characters for his daughters, for his children, to look up to, and so Riri Williams is a member of the, I guess you would say, Iron Man family nowadays. When Iron Man was kind of dead and Doctor Doom was sort of acting as Iron Man. It's a long story. Riri was, I believe, a high school student who picked up some old tech and basically pieced together her own Iron Man suit. And so people were really pissed off about that when if Tony Stark could build this thing in a cave in the desert, I'm sorry, as people love to get, here's a girl, she can't do that. That's what it looked like a lot to me when people started putting out those critiques. But anyway, based on Shinaka Hodge's background, of course, Riri is she's a black young woman. And so having this black woman who was a poet, an educator, playwright, screenwriter on things like gentrification and racial issues that are similarly tied into that, really good choice. I am not familiar with any of her scripts, plays, or poetry myself, but it does make me curious about what her stuff she has. If you are interested in poetry and you want to look up her poetry, she does have 2 poetry collections out there. One is called For Girls with Hips, Collected Poems and Writings, that came out in 2006, and the more recent one from 2016 is called Dated MCs. It's spelled EMCES, so it's actually spelled out MCs. In case you're interested in that at all. I love to see Disney putting in the proper, what feels like the appropriate steps for making sure these kind of new age shows and characters that they're putting on and spotlighting are getting handled correctly. They obviously dropped the ball with a couple of things in the past that we will not go into right this second. But everything that I'm kind of seeing line up for their future Disney Plus TV show projects and whatnot, from Secret Invasion to Ironheart and everything in between, it all seems to be really, really good. Like, they have a good head on their shoulders and they kind of know what they're doing. Meanwhile, you get DC over here with, as I was talking to a friend of mine today, you as a Wonder Woman fan, you should not be able to sit through Wonder Woman movies and fix the problems with the plot or the script in your head. Like, you shouldn't be able to sit there and go, man, it would have been better if they had done this instead of that. Like, you as a fan, as a casual fan, should not be able to do that. The movie should not be bad enough. Point is, I'm just glad to see that Disney Marvel is putting in the steps to hopefully not allow that kind of disappointments to happen for these very honestly important characters like, well, recently we just had Sam Wilson as Captain America. Ironheart Riri would be another one who is definitely up there. If DC ever put Naomi in a movie, she would be included too. They're very important characters. Shang-Chi coming out in September, extremely important movie. This is going to be a big deal. This is like the Black Panther for Asian Americans. Let's just, it's what it is. I feel like that's a fair statement. So it's going to be a big deal. Make sure you get vaccinated so you can go see Shang-Chi this fall, summer, whatever, September. And that wraps up my news on everything. And so that wraps up this week's Monday episode. This is episode 16A. Thank you again for tuning in if you have made it this far into the episode. As I did say before, I'm going to be talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier's behind the scenes this coming Friday, which will be Friday the 7th. If you want to hear what I have to say about that, or if you didn't watch the episode, just want to hear the rundown on it, that's going to be included in Friday's episode. So check that out then. Meanwhile, thank you again for tuning in. You can find me online. My website is sensationalshegeek.weebly.com. Oh gosh, where I've been trying, I'm a little bit behind on it, but I do post the podcast notes that I make for my podcast to kind of vaguely go through as I am doing this recording to make sure I don't get too off track. And if I post those to anybody who is hard of hearing or just prefers to read instead of listening to me mutter about stuff for an hour or so, that is there and accessible for you to use that instead of listening to the podcast if you're at all interested in that. There's a bunch of other stuff on my site. If you poke around, you'll see it. You can find me on Instagram. My username is Anna with the Comics. On Twitter, my username is Savage She-Geek. And also on my website, you're really on these sites, but on my website, you can find links, all the different places where you can listen to this podcast, which is pretty much anywhere that podcasts are available except for Pandora, because I've yet to figure that one out, including YouTube. Also on YouTube, I do action figure reviews from everything from figure arts to Marvel Legends to Star Wars Black Series, and hopefully my Mezco Wonder Woman will show up at some point, and I will get to do an unboxing of her. I didn't do one for Sailor Moon. I got the updated Sailor Moon fig arts. I didn't do a view for her. I guess because she's kind of to be expected. They're all basically the same. I'm getting really off track. The episode is over. Thank you for listening. I'll be back again for episode 16B on Friday, where we'll be talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier behind the scenes episode, as well as comic book things that I liked and were notable from this week's comic books. And like always, I try to remind people that the stuff that I talk about as far as comic books weekly go is like a tenth of what's actually out there. So if I don't talk about anything that strikes your fancy, but you want to get into comic books, you want to read something, your local comic book shop, I can guarantee you, will be happy to find you something to spend some money on for them. So check them out. Don't go to Amazon if you can help it. In the meantime, for the rest of the week, be nice to people and stay sweaty.